Hi, so we are live right now. So I would like to welcome all of you here, the special guests, panelists, and all keynote speaker and all. And I welcome all to Surfaces Reporters e-talks in association with the School of Architecture, Noida International University. My name is Vertica Dvivedi, and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Surfaces Reporter. 2020 marks the 10th year of Surfaces Reporter magazine, which was born with the intent of creating content that powers your ideas and creativity, and knowledge that keeps you informed about architecture, interior design, and building materials. I'm glad Surfaces Reporter is only growing with its commitment with each passing year. World Architecture Day, as we know, is celebrated on the first Monday of each October every year to celebrate architects' commitment to our societies. Today, we will be meeting some of the such architects from Brazil and India. And I'm glad to say that we have got very special guests with us, including His Excellency Correa do Lago, the Brazilian ambassador to India, the President of the Council of Architecture, Mr. Architect Habib Khan, then Architect Mahesh, who is recognized by the late President APJ Abdul Kalam for his design, and a very young and dynamic architect, Nishant Gupta, from Architect Hafeez Contractor. So expect a lot of action and a lot of learning today. But before we call upon the speakers, I would like to request Mr. Rajendra Kumar. He's the director of the School of Architecture, Noida International University, to share a few words. He's also the curator of this event. Over to you, Architect Rajendra Kumar.
Thank you so much, Vertica. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Mr. Andre. You have been always a great motivator to all young architects, and we owe a sincere thanks to you. Thank you so much, Architect Habib Khan. You are a mentor of Indian architects. Thank you so much to Mr. Mahesh and Nishant. And last but not the least, our dear friend Isay Weinfeld. Thank you so much. When I was thinking about curating a special talk in the week of World Architecture Day, I'm from Chandigarh. I studied in Chandigarh, so Chandigarh is in my blood. So for any Chandigarh people, the Brazil is always considered as a brother. So the first person in my mind came some renowned architect from Brazil, and who is the better representative of Brazilian architecture than Isay Weinfeld. Thank you so much, Isay, for joining us. We will have such a wonderful discussion, and we are having a two series of discussion. Today we are talking with Isay Weinfeld. He will be sharing about the perspective of Brazilian architecture. Tomorrow we are also going live with the discussion with Thomas Vonnet. He's the president of UIA. And so with this word, there are a lot of discussion we are going to have in next half an hour, followed by a panel discussion. I would request Your Excellency, Ambassador Andre Correa, to give a welcome note, to give us a word of wisdom to all of us. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rajendra, for organizing this. Thank you, Vertica, for the introduction, and hello to all those that are in India today in this webinar. But obviously, my special abraço goes to Isay Weinfeld, the wonderful Brazilian architect, and I wanted to say to all of you and to the public, I think a very strong message regarding Brazilian contemporary architecture, because I think that Brazilian modern architecture is very much recognized in India. By the way, I went to Chandigarh with Rajendra. We had a great time in Chandigarh. So we have two stars, let's say, of modernist architecture in Oscar Niemeyer and in Paulo Mendes da Rocha, who both won the Pritzker. But I want to let it very clear to the Indian public that Isay Weinfeld is the leader of a new direction in Brazilian architecture. Isay was capable of absorbing the influence of both what we call the School of Rio de Janeiro and the School of São Paulo, and creating a new kind of architecture. And this new kind of Brazilian architecture has been extremely well received by many sectors that normally could be more reluctant to contemporary architecture. So he is responsible for, I believe, an increase in the popularity of Brazilian architecture in many sectors. And although he is particularly famous because of amazing houses, amazing shops and bookstores. I think he made the most beautiful bookstores and hotels, etc. Isay is a talent that still has to be seen in many other areas. And I'm very glad, Isay, when I saw that you designed this very low-income apartment building in São Paulo. I think this is an extraordinary progress. I think that good architecture has to go to everybody. And I think the symbolism of having a tower for low-income apartments in the program of the government, that is the program for low-income construction, to have a building designed by you is an extraordinarily important step in your career and for all of us around the world who are your admirers. I want to say also that Isay chose to be an architect, but he would have been many other things amazingly good because his love for cinema is very known. And maybe if he had given more time to cinema, he would be one of the greatest movie directors in the world. But he decided to dedicate more time to architecture. And I have to say that personally, I thank you very much. So it's with great pride as a Brazilian to see you, Isay, participating here in India and meeting some new friends in India that I hope you will come personally as soon as it is possible to travel, and we can discover together many aspects of India. And so, Rajendra, thank you very much for organizing today's webinar.
Thank you.
You're muted. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. So now, Vertica, I will request if you can introduce Architect Habib Khan, President, Council of Architecture, please.
Yes, sure. So it's time to welcome Architect Habib Khan. He is the President of the Council of Architecture, and he's known for his distinctive contemporary vernacular architecture. He's also an award-winning designer, public speaker, and teacher. So, Mr. Habib Khan, over to you.
Good evening. Thank you, Vertica. Good evening, everyone. His Excellency, Mr. Andre Lago, Architect Isay Weinfeld, Architect Mahesh, my dear friend, Architect Nishant Gupta, Dr. Rajendra Kumar, Noida International University, all the faculty, staff of Noida International University, Vertica, Dvivedi from Surfaces Reporter, and the staff and the tech support of Surface Reporter, my fellow architects, fraternity of architects, audience, ladies and gentlemen, please accept warm greetings on World Architecture Day and World Habitat Day to all of you. And Professor Jayanand as well. Sorry, I missed you. We are going through exceptional times, exceptional circumstances. The pandemic has not broken the world, but has shown a broken world to us. And it has made us pause in the maddening race of development and whatever aspirations that we were all running in. This is a time when we need to introspect. This is a time when we need to think, self-introspect, and find out where we were going and where we need to go. Architects are responsible majorly for the carbon footprint and the sacrilege that has happened on this earth. We have, as human beings, more importantly as architects, not cared about our living species. We have not cared about building sensibly, sustainably, sensitively, and we have trampled on this earth that we live in and we call Mother Earth, but we have not been caring enough for the fellow living species on this earth. We have not cared for our future generations which are going to come, and we have not cared about what kind of legacy and a world that we're going to leave for the next generation to come and generations to come after that. This pandemic is a God-given opportunity for us to introspect, take a break, take a pause, step aside the race, and look into what we were doing, introspect where we were going wrong, and where we need to go ahead, and how we need to go ahead. What should be the roadmap? What should be the way ahead after the pandemic is over? India needs phenomenal infrastructure development, phenomenal housing. More than 60-70% are homeless in our country or need homes. And on this Habitat Day, we need to take a pledge to not only provide meaningful and sensible housing to our people, our citizens, but also to build and also to develop our country on a model which will become a role model for the entire world to come. So I implore my fellow architects, my engineers, and all thinkers, philosophers, to really look inside your own selves and work out a roadmap where not only our country will become a world leader in not only architectural development but overall, and also lead through an example to the entire world. And what other opportunity than the World Architecture Day to request my fellow professionals to look into this very vitally important aspect. I seriously and sincerely wish that you will deliberate over this aspect as well when you are discussing this. His Excellency is here, and I am a lover of Brazilian football, right from Socrates to Pele to name anyone, and I am a dead fan of Brazilian football, not to say women, but absolutely fun-loving, life-loving people Brazilians are, and it's very happy to see His Excellency here and Architect Weinfeld here, and I'm sure we'll have very, very interesting discussions and deliberations after this. And I wish you all the best, and thank you for inviting me and honoring me with your presence in panel. And it's me. Thank you, Rajendra Kumar, for inviting me. Thank you, Vertica, for giving this opportunity. I leave the floor open to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Architect Habib Khan. Thank you for such a warm note. So with this, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Jayanand, to share a few words, please.
Thank you, Vertica. Sorry for inconvenience caused by me. And first of all, Namaskar, Habib Shab, and Your Highness. We all are here to discuss on the day of architecture, World Architecture Day. I congratulate my school of my university to organize this webinar, and I hope we will be having some great outcome of this webinar. And I'm quite happy to welcome you all. And if lockdown goes out, then I will request you all to come over in our campus and see our facilities and suggest us how to groom in better way the new budding architectures. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So with this, the ambassador of Brazil to India, he has expressed about and shared about our keynote speaker in such a beautiful way. He said one thing which I'll never forget. He said Isay Weinfeld could be anything he wanted to, and he's grateful that he has become an architect and is contributing to the world and to Brazil with his architecture. I would like to share a few words about him before I give it over to him to share his keynote. So as we know, architect Isay Weinfeld for the elegantly minimalistic designs of several boutiques, restaurants, hotels, homes throughout Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, including the luxurious Hotel Fasano. We all must have seen the architecture of the beautiful Hotel Fasano. Architect Winfield also works as a set designer, furniture designer, and group in Sao Paulo, Porto Feliz, and Punta del Este, in addition to the Square 9 Hotel in Serbia and the La Petite Afrique building in Monaco. For some years, he also taught theory of architecture at the Faculty of Architecture and Urbanism at Universidade Presbiteriana Mackenzie. Winfield thinks of the building as a complete artwork, and that which is not just functional but also beautiful. Many of his projects have been featured in the Home series, which is available in Netflix. Do surely watch them in Netflix. So I would like now to architect Isay's work and some of his words. Over to architect Rajendra and architect Winfield.
Thank you so much, Vertica. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all our senior speaker. Now I believe that we will go format in this way. When I was having a discussion with Isay's office, we will go a formal conversation. We will discuss some certain issues about architecture. At Isay office, if Mariana is around, she can also show some of the photographs related to the conversation which we are talking. Isay, is it okay? Should we go ahead?
Yes, yes,
okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you so much, Isay, for being with us. I know it's a very early morning in Sao Paulo. So we have, set an agenda of today that we will be discussing certain aspect about Isay's architecture and about his reflection about global architecture, and then we'll come definitely to Indian architecture. As in my beginning note, I said, India and Brazil are like a brothers, of course, in lot of other way also, but in more prominently in architecture, because our Chandigarh and your Brasilia are, both have almost the same age. We had Le Corbusier and you had Oscar Niemeyer. So we have a lot of things to learn. So to start that discussion, so I'll, just would like to request Isay if you can talk about some of your early experiences, your early days, how your initial projects. So your point about some when you were young, like let's say like our other speaker Nishant. So when you were young architect, so how? Just share some of your experiences, sir.
Okay, with pleasure. First of all, again, thank you so much for your kindness to all. I'm very happy to be here tonight with you in the morning here in Brazil. And just to start, I am a very curious man. And before starting learning, before entering the university, I started doing some pieces of art in exhibitions, mostly conceptual art, and then started to do some films, short films. At that moment, it was Separate. That was a boom of Separate in the world, and I started doing some films, and before starting to study architecture, and during the university, I continue to do both of things, films and art in parallel, because two different areas that I have a lot of interest. But in the beginning, on the third year in the university, my uncle bought an apartment and he called me to design it. It was my first opportunity, and I demolished the whole apartment, and I designed an amazing contemporary for that period. It was 1973, very modern apartment, all in white and black. And it was amazing, really beautiful. And it was my first lesson in architecture, in the professional life. It was an amazing apartment, but completely wrong. It was a failure for me because I learned from that time that I should design not for me, but for my clients. And that time, the first work, I designed the apartment just for me to show if I was capable to do. And it was a big mistake. And this I took from the rest of my life, because this black and white apartment had nothing to do with my uncle, who came after the Second War from Poland. And it was a disaster, completely mistake. But it was very important in my life in one side, because direct from that point on, I understand that I should never be the main part of the architecture, that my ego should be invisible and not to show off my work and to work for the other. This was my first lesson and my first work.
Vertica, I'll request don't unmute me. I mean, so at least we two are together. So thank you so much, and I'm glad that you are admitting that it was your learning. So I mean, so it's such a great to hear by a master architect that your first project you did not like, though it was your client. I mean, the client is your relative. But I mean, that's a very great admitting. Now, after when you talk about initial project, and after that you've grown up as a star architect, you've grown up as a big architect. You're not working only in India, you are working all over world, be it Europe, be it America. And your design has a one thing which is a very common, which is, I always say that minimalistic approach, but a very unique elegance in your design. So in due course of time, starting from your young time till now, you have developed a different type of architecture style. What is your design philosophy at now? Yes, one philosophy you have already said, that you are not designing for yourself or for your ego, you are designing for client. Of course, that's a one point. But what about your design philosophy, which you can maybe point out some certain things?
First of all, please, Rajendra, I am not a master. I am not a star architect. Let's begin with this point. I thank you so much, but it's not true. I don't feel like this. My philosophy, if I have one, because I am, maybe I have a philosophy, but I hate to have a label or to be linked in a label or a style. But I think it's to respect the client and the site. I think this is the most important thing. I am a very good listener, and I think an architect should be more than to talk. And this reflects in my architecture, because I speak low with my architecture. I try to, and I think I am 95% a psychoanalyst, more than an architect, 5% an architect, because I am always listening to get something from the client, because if not, if I don't see that I have something from the conversation with the couple or with the client, I could not start any project. Then I need one meeting, maybe a second, a third, and then I can eventually have something very thin, very subtle to start a project. The first meetings with the client, when they start describing their wants and their design, I think in the meeting I start dreaming and let them speak a lot. But while I think about what I will do after the meeting, I think about my last dinners while they are talking about what I saw on TV yesterday night. Then I concentrate again in the meeting, and what they are saying maybe reminds me many things from a month ago. And then I remember a dance performance. I saw a dead dog hit by a car. I remember to call a friend. I remember the documents that I have to sign. These are parallel facts to the conversation, but somehow connected to them, that then it will make me start the project. Then this is important. Then I think this is why I think my history has a lot, like a funnel, has a lot to do with each project.
I absolutely agree on your point, and I appreciate it that you are saying that we should take client as our help for within our design. I mean, yes, if you listen client carefully, if you listen their requirement carefully, then half of your problems are solved. That I absolutely agree. I believe that Nishant will have some point. Maybe in the panel we will discuss. I mean, they are also working on the same kind of architectural style. I'll skip the question about a star architect, which you may choose not to answer, but I'm tempted to ask. What is your comment about this star architecture terminology?
I don't like it. I don't see any sense to have star architects. To be famous does not mean that he's good. And in my opinion, most of the star architects are not good architects. That doesn't mean anything to be a star. This is what I think.
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm not going to ask you the names, but yes, that's. Okay, so in the beginning of our discussion, we were talking about India and Brazil, means Chandigarh and Brasilia, means Corbusier and Niemeyer. I believe that Corbusier and Niemeyer, the experiment of Chandigarh and Brasilia, started almost the same time in the respective two great nations, I mean, Brazil and India. We have come almost 65 years after Masters Niemeyer or Masters Corbusier. In India, I can say that Chandigarh movement have become a catalyst for architecture movement. I mean, there are a number of architects who were good architects, but after the Chandigarh experiment, Indian architecture, not only in the region of North India where Chandigarh is lying, but whole India, Chandigarh became as a catalyst for movement in India. How do you think about Brasilia as a catalyst in the Brazil country?
No doubt it was a turning point, because modernist architecture, Brazilian architecture, I think still reflects in many parts of the world. It was a very important moment. Niemeyer and Lúcio Costa, they were very talented, genius at their time, and they had the opportunity to show, because of many including political situation, to be possible to show all their talent at that period. But I think the world moves, and they were important, and but I don't think in another way they eclipsed many generations of architects here because of their stardom. And even when he was 95 years old, he was still having calls to design museums and in Brazil. Then many generations between my generation and Niemeyer's could not express themselves because for not most of them it was not statical or conceptual reasons, but political, because in many places a small city, the mayor of a small city with his label has a right. If he designed a small museum, it was for sure nobody will say anything about this. But this, in a way, it has its problems. And I think, at least in my when I was a student in your university, it was an obligation to follow the masters. It was very important for the teachers, and my word was another one. I was linked to movies, to music, to arts, and for me, the idea to have breakfast architecture, lunch architecture, and dinner architecture, it's the opposite what I think in my life. I think for an architect, we should have inputs from all over for all arts, for sculpture, for theater, dance, and everything. This is the way I see. Then I was much more como eu falo, influenced by Ingmar Bergman, the filmmaker, than by Oscar Niemeyer. This I am sure to say. This was more, and I think we need, even if you do wrong, but you need to try to go by yourself, to have your own ideas, and to try, maybe it's right or wrong, you make good things or bad things, but try to go and to find your own path. This, I think it's important.
I absolutely agree, sir. I mean, your words are really very encouraging, not only for senior architect, even younger architect, all the students who. I would also like, if Excellency, or I mean, if you wish, would you also like to add some comment or any questions to Isay, sir, Excellency? Any, or I should go with the flow?
Excellency? You go. I'm just listening with the usual admiration for my compatriot.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Anytime, sir, if you want to come in and you want to add your points, so we will request you, sir. Okay, so Isay, I don't know. Yeah, you have been discussing that you never been to India.
Unfortunately.
Yes, but you are still. I mean, you are so young. I mean, still you have almost 50 years more to live. So minimum, I believe. I mean, yeah, India and Brazil are very far. We are the two different edge of the globe. But still, I mean, when we talk about Brazilian architect, when I had met number of Brazilian architects during my study when I was working in Milan, from Brazilian architect what they know about Chandigarh, what they know about Indian architecture, more like a Chandigarh, only because Brasilia, of course. And then there are few architects' name. I mean, of our masters, Doshi, Bibi Doshi, our master Charles Correa. Uh, but what is your reflection about Indian architecture, sir? If maybe some personified Indian architecture, or maybe some building which you admire. We would just love to hear you, sir.
Oh, thank you. But I confess I'm not deeply familiar with the Indian architecture, apart from Charles Correa and Doshi, Mr. Doshi, and some more young generation that I can see online, some works like Studio Mumbai, like a project by RMA Architects, by Spasm, by Third Space, by Brio. Then some projects here and there that I follow when I see online. This is what I know about Indian architecture. Very good new things, but not deeply familiar with all the new contemporary story of Indian architecture.
So, sir, I will request you to come sometime to India with the permission of Excellency. I believe that we will definitely love to have you here, and we will show
It's
you
my
some of.
next goal. Yes.
Yes. And for your information, we recently had a month back with Vertica only. We had a very interesting session with Studio Mumbai, the Bijoy Jain, the architect, and then another Portuguese great architect, Mateus. What was the name of Vertica? What was the name of the architect?
Iris Mateus.
Sorry.
Manuel Matthews.
Mateus Aris. Okay,
Yes.
so Mateus and Bijoy, we had a very great session, and then Mr. Shiza and Doshi. It was a very interesting session, and we had people joining. They joined us from more than 30 countries. So there is Bijoy is really a true representative of young, not young, not very old, but sir, any of the project which you think that which is the dearest baby? I know that every project is your dearest baby, but any of the project which you would like to discuss? I would like to also mention about there was a controversy about your project in Vienna, about the Tower of Vienna. Yeah, I personally like that project. A very good. It's because Vienna is a beautiful city. I mean, of course, it's a World Heritage city. But when I was working for the conceptualization of a World Heritage city tag for Chandigarh, of course, there was a lot of things that the World Heritage tag doesn't allow for modern architecture or contemporary innovations. So yes, of course, there was a much debate about your Vienna project, but your New York project is a very good one. So any project, any of the very interesting story about some of your, let's say, best babies?
No, I think, as you said, I am very careful to take a project. Then if I take care very carefully of my baby till the end, because here I act as a more, I think, as an art director, because I take care of the interiors, because I love interiors also. It's not a less important thing in my way of thinking architecture, and I take care of the landscape, of the lighting, of the graphic design of the building, even the name. I try to participate. Then I think it's a whole thing together could be stronger if you think as a whole idea, the building, not just doing your part and thinking architecture is important and the other parts you don't care. It's not my way of thinking. Then I have a lot, what I think I like to, talking about the Vienna project. Vienna is a city, the project was a competition with 25 international architects that we won almost 8 years ago. But Vienna is like this. If you know, and I now know very well the city and its people, and I like them very much, but they are very strong discussing the elements in the city. And this is wonderful. This is not bad. Different from Brazil, then I learned a lot there with this discussion. And I still think that we did the right thing, and we're waiting because it's a process. You know, I don't like to take projects that take so long, and it's almost entering the 8th year without even starting the project. But to mention what André said about the low income projects that we are doing, it's you know, what I love is what I'm doing now. I'll give you an example. We designed this, we finished some month ago our first building in New York. We are designing in the middle of construction of our second building. And we finished the first one, and it's near the High Line. And it's a luxury residential building with 2 towers in the middle of everything in New York. And people called me here to design this, what André said about this low income building near the Brazilian, the Paulistano High Line, called Minhocão. It's exactly the same. And this is the biggest pleasure in my life, to make 2 completely opposite things. Then what architecture gave me, and I am so grateful, is to work to have a princess as a client, but the people, the homeless people in Sao Paulo, 6 months ago, called me to design their space. Then to work with people from this mixture of people, this is what I love, to be with people from completely different origins. And this is, for me, it's very rich for what I learned a lot about them. And I like, in the middle, I don't like very much, but to be on the extremes is what I love. Then
I really applaud you, sir. I mean, this is such a great to hear by. I mean, I will again say a master architect, of course. I mean, one is a high line and another is a low cost housing, and both you are making satisfied both client. I mean, I read about your project of low income housing and also your project of Brooklyn in New York and High Line. So we have 5 more minutes for our dialogue. Then we'll go for panel discussion. So
yes.
So I mean, just a two very important points which are left is, I mean, when we studied architecture like maybe 30-year or 40-year back, when the technological innovation was not. I mean, I'm talking about specifically about information technology. I mean, the social media, the IT, and the sophisticated softwares and all. The younger generation, I mean, we call it as an academician, I mean, as a teacher, I always say that today is the kid, they are born with the silver spoon because they know everything. They have a software in their hand. They have library in their phone. So what do you think about how this access of information technology or sophistication of software, is it killing the creativity in younger generations, or what kind of reform in education system you would like to advise, not only for Brazil, but for all over world? But because this common problem is not only in one country, this is spreading all over world. So what is your take about it, sir?
Rajendra, I don't know how catch. I don't know. And this, I think, didn't make me to be a good or bad architect. I think all these tools it's so important for us, but they need to work for us, because everything is on your mind, and this will never change in your creativity and your way of thinking about the world and the things that you love. And this will be always like this, but all the tools, and mainly now that we are having this pandemic, it's so important to have the technology together with us to help us to put our ideas in a very quick way. The transformation from in the beginning of my career till now, it's amazing. I still feel that for creativity, the not to be together with my team in my office, it's difficult, because we were discussing other things, not only architecture. And then this is more difficult to do nowadays with all these Teams and Zoom and all the things. But I think step by step, we are learning how to deal with, and I think it will be for good.
Sir, I got a message by your office that we should have some of your project as a slide. So I'll request my colleague Madhu. Madhu, can you hear us? Madhu, please unmute your mic. Madhu, can you please allow Miss Mariana from Isay office for PPT presentation? I got a message by Madhu.
Yes, yes, she can. She can. Yes, she can share.
So Isay, your office has asked me to do some presentation on image. So Nishant and Mr. Mahesh, we'll just come back. We'll take a 5 minute. I mean, then we are coming to you. So yeah, Isay, yeah.
Yes, on your left is the Jardin, the New York building, and on the right is the low-income building. Just to say that this project is opening a space here because we were at the disposal of people and to do things of this kind of work. And now after this building, people started to call me, and I am designing the 2 big projects of low income in the state of São Paulo, small houses with prefab materials, and it's opening a very big space in my mind and my office to do this. Maybe I think it's in the right moment of my life. I am very prepared to do this and very happy to do this, because luxury for me doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you know, I would just request you. I mean, there is one project by the office of Nishant. It's called Imperial Tower 1 and Imperial Tower 2. Maybe and Nishant can speak. It's a very similar, I mean, a very nice project for low income group. I believe Nishant may speak when we are talking about that project. So Isay, I have 2 more questions, very small questions.
Yes.
One question about you talked about present COVID pandemic. So do you think that after this pandemic overs, because we just crossed, I mean, in terms of a number of affected cases, we just come in from the Brazil, and now India is on the 2nd and Brazil is on the 3rd. So 2 of the great nation in the world, we are suffering because of this COVID pandemic with so do you think that we as an architects, we went wrong somewhere? As our President Council of Architecture was talking about, that we as an architect, we did not take care about our Mother Earth. So my two questions combined one. So where we went wrong as an architect, and what do you think that after COVID pandemic, what's going to be a new normal in our fraternity?
Rajendra, I have no idea. No one has, I think, no idea what will happen. I think that when we'll have the vaccine, we'll be again the same people as for the good and for the worst. Nothing will change. But I think it will have changes in way of living, way of working, and this architecture, the architects, they have a lot of things to do. But I think always we don't need to think about the world that I am in my office, sitting very comfortable. This is not the problem. The rules to the market, to the real estate, this doesn't matter because they have money and they have space to do and to change and to put one more room here, one there, to put a terrace here to be more open. But this is not the main thing. The main thing that we have here in Brazil and in India is the people. They don't have a place to live and they don't have money, and it will be the same unless the government will direct something to have, let's say, acoustic walls that will try to do this to emphasize the let's say the size of the windows. To have this should be from the new laws from the government to this kind of people, not to do for the luxury market, because this does not have any importance. They know how to do this. Is not so. Then the big change we should think it's about the people who really need a place to live and how it will be for them. This is the main thing architecture should think about.
Thank you so much, sir. We will discuss this more in length when we come for panel discussion. I believe Mahesh is doing such a good work on that thing. And people like you have a very strong voice. I mean, the government authority and the people, they listen to you. I believe that here our role is also there. We as a professional, we need to raise our voice for, let's say, for shaking the government to understand that, okay, this is the time, guys, we need to do. Your last question, I promise this is going to be the last question. Your message to young architects, because I am academician, sir. I really would love to have your message to young architects, not only Indian young architects across the world, sir. How would you welcome them in the real profession, sir?
I think curiosity is very important. Good to be well educated and good humor. 3 big points to be a good architect, not just an architect, but I think, as I said in the beginning, I think they need to follow and engage in other arts. They need to listen more than to talk, because I think the architect is a server and we are here to serve people, and also to find their own path. As I said, this is very important, to have its own personality and to try and to you know, it's very easy to have, it's not easy, I'm sorry, but to have a label, something that's we call the style, to find a style. But I think when you find the style is the first step to decadence, in my opinion, because you sit in the success, because you did something and the people would love, and you say, okay, this is the way I go, and you make money accepting the projects and always being with your style. And this is exactly what I hate. It's exactly, I want to turn the page always. I want to try, maybe to do mistakes, but this is life, but to try, because I think I can, the only way I can surprise people is if I surprise myself. And this is, I think it's the only thing that I can say for young people.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, you know, I can go on for whole night for discussion with you. I mean, you are such a, you know, such a big bank of knowledge and such a big bank of experience. Now, but because of the limitation of time, we would also like to engage our other two colleagues.
Yes,
Vertica, if I can request you to introduce our other colleague Nishant and Mahesh, and we formally engage for this panel discussion about certain issues about globalization and architecture. And then
yes, Architect Rajendra. It was a very nice discussion. I really enjoyed this part, that if I am not able to surprise myself, how can I surprise the world? And the fact that Architect Isay said about learning a lot of different arts and combining them to create something is architecture. It's not about just one field, it's a lot of fields coming together. Awesome, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So with this theme, thank you. So with the same spirit, I would like to welcome right now architect N. Mahesh. He is one of the country's most eminent architects with more than 44 years in the academic and professional architecture. He has contributed immensely in the field of sustainable architecture and has revived timber construction. Late former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, recognized him and his work for Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology and also honored him for his excellence in design. Architect Mahesh also founded the College of Architecture, Trivandrum, and is a chairman and managing trustee. Let's hear more from Architect Mahesh. And before that, I would like to introduce the young and dynamic, the young boy sitting here, Nishant. So, Architect Nishant Gupta, he is amongst the youngest associate architect at Architect Hafeez Contractor. Nishant was selected as the top architects of India and currently nominated for Vogue's 40 under 40. Nishant is currently handling more than, I think, 50 million square foot of development across India. Developer clients include Godrej, DLF, Lodha, Purvankara, Transcon, Seth, DB, Zorbia, Nahar, and more, lot more. So Nishant is heading Amravati Government Complex Master Plan, 1,600 acres, assembly and high court buildings in consortium with Foster and Partners UK. Nishant is recently, he has been leading the final shortlisted design for the International Design Competition for the Central Vista, Rajpath, and Indian Parliament. So I would, without wasting more time, I would like to take all of us through a panel discussion, which is towards a better urban future. So climate change, an aging population, anti-globalization sentiments the world over, technological disruption, a lot of social media technology, all these pose unique problems and opportunities to cities. I would like to know, starting with Architect Weinfeld and then followed by Architect Mahesh and then Nishant and of course Architect Rajendra, to tell our audience about the state of architecture today. What do you think about the state of architecture today? What defines the global architecture and how is and what is the future looking like? So this is my question. starting with architect Weinfeld. The state of architecture.
For cities.
Yes.
But
For cities, urban living.
I think that, as I said, I respect the local traditions, talking about the global architecture. And I don't think you can put, you know, the same building in all the places. This is a mistake in my opinion. This is the bad thing about the global architecture. And it was very well showed by, I think the best idea of it was again about cinema with the genius Jacques Tati, when he did Playtime, and he was showing the same building and you know, the city, Chicago and Singapore and many Paris, and it was the same building always. This is speaks alone about the situation of the global architecture. This is the best image, in my opinion, how we should not do things like this, is to respect the local traditions and to give the respect of the site, the knowledge of the history, and then with your knowledge and with your ideas to try to do something, again, respecting the place where we will put the building.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So moving to architect N. Mahesh.
Sir, you need to unmute your mic.
Yeah, you have to, Vertica, allow me to heap praise on this man. This guy, Weinfeld, is 1 year younger to me, or 2 years younger to me. But I tell you, he is a remarkable person. I'm very happy to share a screen with him. And you know, if I look at Weinfeld's work, he is more like our Charles Correa in design concepts. If you look at the Champalimau Cancer Center in Lisbon, where I have gone 2 times just to see the building, because I have been Charles Correa's associate and a kind of a partner. So I have been to Champalimau, and if you look at the Kanchenjunga of Charles Correa, the apartment in Bombay, where I also was a draftsman when I was working with him 47 years back. So he is actually, Isay Weinfeld is a contemporary or a Brazilian reply to Indian Charles Correa. It's my personal feeling. Because he's a great man. He's a great man. Isay is a fantastic work he has done. And the very deep niches that he creates, the fantastic blank walls he creates, the bold massing of Isay, these are fantastic things. And he is like a twin brother. And actually, Isay is a pin-up architect, like a calendar girl, you know, nude girl in calendar, like that. He's a pin-up architect. So I would say Isay is a calendar.
I think we have after saying calendar girl.
Mr. Mahesh, if I am a pin-up architect, wait, because I'll send you some nudes.
So architect Mahesh, connection seems to be little low at the moment. So why not we go to Nishant and know about his opinion about the state of architecture, and also start sharing, Nishant, with how did you find the talk between architect Rajendra and Isay, and what was the takeaway that you have taken?
Yeah. Okay, can I continue?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now I will answer your question, Vertica. I will answer your question, which Isay already answered. Of course, his answer as bigger value. But I will say in my own humble way what I think about your question. You see, architecture is becoming more and more dependent on technology. You ask us, what is the state of architecture? Today, architects are depending more on technology because more than climate. Those days, we used to design for the climate. Now nobody cares for climate because you can create artificial climate inside a building, artificial intelligence to open your door, artificial facade to change the fenestrations. And this is because urban architecture has a challenge in terms of space constraint, demanding client, budget, and of course, the biggest culprit is a FSI. Every client wants to build maximum. So the FSI is the biggest single bloody culprit. And if you ask me what defines global architecture, I'm sure Isay and Nishant will agree that I will say that architects are increasingly looking forward to better technologies. They are not looking forward to solutions on climate or site constraints. They're looking for better technology. It's a quick fix. It's a quick fix job. So we have to have a bigger debate with stalwarts like Isay Weinfeld on this subject. It's a very big subject. This particular question itself is a big global subject. Thank you.
Correct. So I think I'll jump in now.
Yes, you should.
All right. I mean, it's the first time I felt how consultants like, structural consultant and MEP consultant feel like when they are invited for a concept design presentation and they have to be there because they are appointed for the job. But at the same time, it was very enlightening, listening to Isay's stories. And I think I relate a lot with him when he says that, architecture for him was stories and it was storytelling. And, how you have a director like Buzz Luhrmann, who sort of writes the movies, he directs the movies, he does the background score of the movie, and he does even the sets of the movies, So somebody like him, it's like you have the whole idea. So, I mean, I think Ismay, when he said that he wanted to be a movie maker and he became a architect, I think that movie would have been on a screen, but what he has done is that it's a screen in front of our eyes all the time, and it's the different shots and different angles that we see that sort of constitute of how the romance of that particular scene is going to be like. So I think I'm delighted to have been listening to him, and I think I could relate in a lot of ways, in a lot of things. Coming back to, when Rajendra and Vertica, you both had been saying young architect, I think, Ismay and Mahesh, all these guys are young architects. It takes, for an architect, once you don't work for, 3 to 4 decades, you're still in your nappies. So I'm just trying to come out of my nappies and, sort of, do whatever I can do best, in my own ways. And these are stalwarts. So, that is the thing. Then, His Highness Andre initially said that, good architecture should reach everybody, and I think that currently is the most important and most significant topic that, people around the world, policymakers around the world, architects around the world should talk about. Because, we always, are fascinated by I personally do not like the word like star architects or anything, because what we talk about is some museum, we talk about some art gallery, we don't talk about mass housing, we don't talk about 85% to 90% of the built environment we're really living in. We don't talk about just a regular residential project. Why? Because it's a residential project. There's a the so-called keepers of architecture, love to, just talk about, art galleries, or just talk about, the romance with these structure, but we sort of miss out the bigger picture, which is the basic need of housing, for Brazil or for India, wherein, people are talking about, quality of air. We are talking about how can we give them shelter, So I think that is very important. So how we design. Do we design for our ego or do we design for the need? I think that is very important. And then I think state of Indian architecture, or how the future of architect, I think it is very confused right now, I would say, because the built form, I think everybody is trying to compete with each other, and I think the state of architecture is very confused in terms of built form. In terms of awareness, because of the social media, everything, I think it is very visible. Just before talking to Ismay, I could just scroll down all the works that he has done. It is very visible, and people around the world are more aware now what's happening on the other side of the world, which unfortunately in the previous years people could not. And I think in terms of profession, it is sort of disappearing with the way the contractors and the clients are working, and the policy makers are working for the current developing countries. I think it's disappearing. What is the state of global architecture? I think it's sort of, what is global is getting confused where you are. I mean, if you know where you are, then it is not global. I mean, for me, a global architecture would be you don't get to know where you are. So that is what the real current architecture is like. So those are my inputs. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant. So what? Sure.
No, just talking about what Nishant said, because, I agree completely. And I think people usually put your work or your ideas on a drawer, and they called you just for that the whole life. If you this is what I aim, not always to have a style and to have a multidisciplinary work with so many things doing at the same time in so many fields. But people should know. I remember when I designed the most luxurious restaurant in Brazil, when they opened, the next day in the morning, the CEO of McDonald's called me to design McDonald's. And I was very happy because they understood that we could do the same thing, because it's the same relation with between comedy and drama. It's a very thin wall between them, and the people who knows how to do one thing knows how to do the other thing. It's the same thing about luxury and low income. People should know that luxury is not the material, is the space and the idea. And just to complement what Nishant said, thank you so much for your words.
Thank you so much. It was a great addition to what Architect Mahesh and Architect Nishant had said. So what Architect Isay said, if I have to give in a brief, then it means that if you know management, so what you are managing doesn't matter. If it is about management, then you are either managing this or managing that. But if you know the context, then you can do it. There's a thin line between any kind of a concept, be it low income, luxury, or anything. And that can be achieved in that way. Is that right? I hope
yes,
so.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. So moving ahead.
Before that, Vertica, I would like to add.
So moving ahead. Yes, sure.
Yeah. So I think another misconception that had been, sort of taught in academics around the globe is low income housing does not mean low amenity housing, or it does not mean a ground plus one structure or a ground plus two structure. So like, the example Ismay showed, I think low income housing is, proper utilization of space, making sure every square feet counts, doing a proper structure. I think because we have, certain members of faculty here, I think it is very important that, a right message goes to the students who are sort of, learning this and coming from a great, I think it's a fantastic platform for them to, know this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the addition. So it is said that there is no perfect city, no perfect formula for any city, because every city is different. Every city is habited of different local kind of, people, local traditions and all that. Yet learning from one city and implementing as per the local environment has proved to be beneficial. So here I know it needs a very big discussion, very long discussion, but still I would like to know what are the few key considerations needed to plan and develop cities of today in the face of rapid change and uncertainty that is happening? If you people can share some of the key considerations that cities must, understand to make cities and urban living more better for the future. Anyone can start. Yes, Architect Mahesh.
Yeah. You see, this is in designing cities, this question cannot be answered on a global level because there are 200 odd countries and each of them have different climate, each of them are in different latitude and longitude, and each of them have different population demographical constraints, and they have economic issues and political issues, socio-economic issues. So this question cannot be answered on a, there is no, in a global city planning, there is nothing called one size fits for all. One size doesn't fit all. So this has to be handled separately. However, a good city, one of the finest, few of the finest cities I have been more than once, and which I rate as one of the finest cities. I don't know whether Nishant and Rajendra Kumar and Isay will agree with me, is Montpellier. The town planning of Montpellier, Montreal, Busan of Correa, the Bilbao in Portugal, in Spain, Bilbao. These 5 cities are fascinatingly designed because fortunately they were designers, the planning like Chandigarh, like Sao Paulo and Brasilia and Chandigarh, they could be planned, the city itself could be planned. So a city should be looking inward. It should not be like Weinfeld or Nishant said, only for the rich people. The city should be looking inward and it should encompass a middle class population, low income population. As Nishant said, I would like to not call housing or cities low cost. It should be called cost effective. That is the correct word. Like today, nobody says handicap toilet. They say differently abled toilet. Even American Disability Association standards have changed. So we have to look at, like Nishant said, 70–80% of all population are low income population. So we should not call it low income or economically weaker section housing. We should call it cost effective housing. Because there should not be any stigma. The people should not feel, in Weinfeld may not know, the Tatas are the greatest company in the world and the number 1 in terms of ethicality and transparency and honesty and credibility. Tatas, Isay may not know. And Tatas made a mistake. They said, we are going to bring out a low-cost car. Nobody wanted to buy a low-cost car. So the whole car, we thought there would be millions of cars on the road. There would be no road left. But it failed because they used the word low cost. So like that, we should not use the word low cost in our town planning or architecture or urban design. We should call them cost effective because, like Nishant said, it should not lack amenities, but it should be cost effective. So the town planning in a global sense, how future cities should be, cannot be answered in one line or one para. That is my feeling.
Yet you have beautifully said that. Yet you have beautifully said that a city should look inward.
Inward.
Am I audible? Is it okay? Okay, a city should look inward is, what you have said in a very beautiful way. One key consideration as a city should look inward towards its local culture, local traditions, local needs, and how it can take all those things together to make the city. So going ahead with the same question, Architect Isay or Architect Nishant, would you like to add anything to this?
Yes, I think I personally hate cars, and I think for me the quality of life is to walk. And here in São Paulo we have a lot of problems. It's a huge city, but the center of the city is empty, and the poor people, it's outside the center completely. They need to have transport and they spend 3 hours going from one side to the other. Then to work near your place to live is important. And yeah, I think to mix is the most important thing, because here also, because security, we have problems with fences. Then you don't, in many places, you don't have a mix of residential and commercial spaces that, in my opinion, should have. And this makes some neighbors very, very empty, because they don't have mix of people together. This is what makes a city livable. And the mix is, in my opinion, the most important thing.
Being in India, we can understand what you mean, because our cities, we know how these things or this mix is not yet worked out, and the city has been growing on its own and just spreading on its own. Good thing is that recently I've come across a news, and we have it in Surfaces Reporter, that the government of India is doing something for housing for all. With housing for all, they're also doing housing for all in retail segment, so that wherever the government is, wherever there are factories and units and all that, there are going to be complexes, housing complexes, which are going to be for housing those people who are working for those factories and units and all that, because otherwise slums gets developed around it. So Nishant, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think, cities are, the best city to live in would be, as in like, cities are not made by designers. I think cities are made by people, and cities are made by policymakers. Because an architect, I'll be limited to doing my plot. As a urban designer, I'll be limited to doing the land use plan. But I think it is the policymakers who sort of help us achieve the ultimate city. Like any legislation that comes out for any legislation that comes out in field of law, or it comes out in field of agriculture, or the results are immediately seen. But what happens about a wrong law in urban environment, it takes 8 to 10 years to see the repercussions. So I'll have a law, right? I'll follow that law, but it would be too late in the day that I have actually destroyed the skyline, the streetscape, and then I try and correct it. So I think a great deal lies with the policymakers, and I think leadership, and they need to be informed. Coming to what kind of cities, I personally like romance of Barcelona. I like aggression of Dubai. The way they are building. I like elegance of London streets. I like commotion of Mumbai. I mean, it's disorder in order, but I like the commotion of Mumbai, and I like innovation of Singapore. How they are. I'm not as learned as Mahesh, architect Mahesh, and I've not traveled to those cities. What he talked about, but I'm more from the Instagram generation, where I know the cover pages and I don't read. So I think that's what we've been doing, and a fine mix of his experience and and the current aggression. I think that is something is required for all the cities of future.
As
Wonderful, Nishant.
sorry, Nisha,
Wonderful.
as I hate cars, my favorite city is Venice.
Right. So I have been lucky
Because
to
you
visit
have
Bilbao.
you have also the surprise of the urbanism of the city. You are walking in a very narrow alley, and suddenly the space is open for a huge and amazing space, and this is very strong in a city.
Amazing, amazing. So we have been discussing about a lot of cities, beautiful cities, right? And definitely there is something or the other to learn from a city and to adopt it in a local way, with the way, a local adaptability can happen. So with this, I think I would like to ask Madhu, is there any question, any more question? Because I've collected most of the questions from viewers.
So we have, sorry if I come in between. We have 1 minute. I know that Isha is such a busy architect. I have requested him only for 90 minutes, but we can take 1 or 2 live question if you have.
Yes. So Madhu, if you are, yes, Madhu is there, and I think she's collecting the questions. Till that time, I would like to know one thing. It's a little different from everything. I would like to know, I know that Architect Isay is also a filmmaker. Would you like to share a few experience, little experience about filmmaking with us?
Isha, you need to unmute your mic.
Can you repeat, please, Vertica?
Yeah. We know that you are also a filmmaker, and you're not only a filmmaker, you are a lot of things together, but we'd like to know a little bit of your experience in filmmaking.
In filmmaking. Yes, I am still directing some short films now, mixing my big passion, that is music, and music, architecture, and cinema. I am doing this apart from my work, but I have other interests. I am finishing my post-graduation at night in the last years in literature. Then I have a little book that maybe will come out soon with let's see what, but it will translate exactly. It's the same, because I think including the process of doing a film and doing architecture, and then the both of them, you need a lot of people to do, and it's so similar to have from the first sketches of a building and the first writing of a script of a film, and then you have the making of a film that you need a lot of people, and the making of a construction that you have, and after also the process is similar, because you have editing and putting the music in the films, and you have the interior design and the landscape in architecture. All the process are very, very similar between making movies and making architecture.
I'm glad I asked you this question. And may I say one thing? I think Excellency will agree to this. I think there should be a film on you.
Sorry?
I think there should be a film on you.
But I think talking.
I would like. Yes, please.
But you see, similar also is the career of an architect and a filmmaker. Just to give you an example, what I want to do and I try to do in architecture, maybe it was more or less what Stanley Kubrick did on films, because he was one filmmaker, but he did a science fiction, a love story, a war film. He went to many fields doing the same thing. And this is not to go in just one direction, but to try and to open your mind and to do many things at the same the same time.
Few closing words.
I believe Vertica, we should request Excellency if he would all like.
Yeah, he's there. Yeah.
Excellency.
Well, thank you so much for tonight's discussion. Isay, you are really always inspiring. I'm very glad that you mentioned Stanley Kubrick, who is my favorite film director. But I want also to say two very short things. One, that Brazil and India can work very closely together, I think, in the issue of cities, because we have still similar challenges. And you can see that today's issues regarding cities, as was mentioned by many of the speakers, it's not about a one solution for everybody, on the opposite, but we can learn from each other, because some small interventions in one city can be extraordinarily positive in another, even more for countries like ours that still have so many challenges. So I want very much to stimulate this discussion about cities. And by the way, this is one of the greatest differences, I don't know, Isay, if you know, between India and Brazil, is that India is a country that is getting urbanized very quickly, but is still under 40% urban. And Brazil is already 90% urban. So we have many experiences to share. And I think that this would be a very positive thing. The other thing is that to urge officially Isay to come to India, which I know will not be difficult, but even more Isay, because India is an incredibly rich country in so many different arts. So it's a country for you, from cinema to dance to music to history of architecture. I mean, with 5,000 years of history, India is a constant source of inspiration. So I think you will feel so much at home here that I'm glad that you will stay for a long time.
Wonderful. You have spoken what was in our heart, and the way architect Mahesh, Nishant Gupta, architect Rajendra Kumar has shared about Isay. We really want you to come to India. We want to invite you to come to India.
Look forward. I'll be here very soon. I hope so.
Yes.
After this pandemic, it will be my first place to go.
Yes.
Hope so. Thank you so much.
So you will feel home here. See, and all of you, would you like to share one-liner ending line? Nishant, starting with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in love with Isay already, and I would like him to come to India and get the Brazil Carnival also to India.
Thank you, Nishant.
Architect Mahesh. Architect Mahesh.
Yeah. Hi, Isay. If you come to India, don't go to Rajendra Kumar School of Architecture. You come to my School of Architecture. I have a College of Architecture, which is one of the biggest in the country. Don't
worry.
Let him pay for your airfare, but you come to my college.
Okay. So
thank you.
Isay will land if he comes from Brazil, he will land either in Delhi. Then I will catch him. If he land in Mumbai, Isay will catch him.
Okay. Right. Good night.
My solution is I'll be inviting all of you to the annual event that we do. All of you will be my guests, and so there will be no fight between where you go.
Thank
you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Isay. Wonderful meeting you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very